Conversation model.
Well, last time we did all hands during this talk is when we had a deal come in.
I know, right?
So let's hope that happens again.
Roll the dice.
We need an 8-ball. Yeah, we need an office 8-ball. Is there an 8-ball here? Will the deal come in?
We should have
an 8-ball.
An 8-ball, yeah.
Maybe we want to clarify our language a little bit.
Can we get one of those? Oh yeah, no, not an 8-ball. We got enough coffee next door.
It's like a post-lunch, like we need a ball to like stay awake.
Yeah.
But it's gotta be like no plastic and like all organic.
Amazon, everything's plastic.
You know, I was thinking about like how powerful plastic is. I had recently bought something stupid, and I was like, man, if this had been made out of metal or wood, like it would be so much more expensive. And instead, we just have extruded plastic.
Yeah, molds are pretty cool.
Microplastics into our fish.
Yep.
That we
In our
eat.
bodies, in our lungs.
How can you
No
like,
pressure.
Doesn't matter. We'll do what
try something?
That's right.
It's fine.
Say like, a couple of different things.
Just an interesting set of trade-offs.
It's like virtual meeting or
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it? I don't see the light on. Is it recording yet?
whenever you're ready.
Okay. All right. So the goal of this conversation is to mostly just kind of like bring security to the forefront of our minds. I know a lot of us being engineers, it kind of like comes naturally. However, it's worth taking a step back to consciously think about security because our customers ultimately depend on us. It's kind of another one of those things like if we didn't have security, we wouldn't really exist. So while it's extremely important and it ends up being something like customers trust us with, if we mess it up, then it can impact us in a big way. Ultimately, there's a lot of different ways that security can be breached. A lot of things that we have a lot of apps that we use. Let me take this different approach. We don't have a traditional security model the way a lot of corporations do, where once you're inside of the building, you're typically in like a secure network, and there's some function of IT that allows you to even access the internet. You only get the approved internet and all that hootenanny. Because we are a distributed team, we end up using, we don't really have like a strong perimeter to protect us as individuals. And so with that kind of freedom of being able to go to whatever site you want to use, to be able to use whatever app you want without necessarily having to talk to somebody, there's a lot of extra responsibility that ends up being placed on us as individuals in terms of what links are we clicking on. Because when I was working at the bank, if I clicked on a bad link, I had, IT to kind of like backstop and say that's a bad link, or IT was scrubbing my incoming attachments. So we had to take on a little bit more ownership of that. So the first step is just, we are the first step in security. We are the point. If, we're in a state of, we're in a period of time where there's going to be a lot of nation state actors looking to hijack our machines. And if we have poor passwords, they get access to the machine. If they get access to Matt's machine has access to Bonsai. Now, why would they go after Bonsai? I don't know. But conceptually, they could get to a customer's data. And they could do things.
They could mine Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I mean, they could
Absolutely.
theoretically, if Matt's computer has access to jump on all of our nodes, they could get on all of our
Or just take over his machine
Yeah.
and mine Bitcoin.
Or Dan's. Or yours.
That's big deal.
No, only people with pink shirts.
Okay.
I'll wear mine tomorrow. So we have a lot in place to protect us, but from a social or behavior standpoint, it's something we need to be vigilant against. We need to be aware that phishing is an attack that'll happen. I think a lot of us probably resonate more with like the vigilance and phishing concept when we think of our parents. I know I do. I have a father that's going through some cognitive issues, and he'll, it's like every day I get a phone call. They're saying, Apple's texting me that I need to do something, otherwise they're going to shut down my email. Dad, you don't have email with Apple. Like that's a scam.
Apple wouldn't do that.
Furthermore, Apple's not gonna do that. They're just gonna bill you. So we have to be vigilant. We have to be aware of the things that we're going through. I don't think, we're all pretty technically savvy. So again, it's not a huge thing for us. We're also a very tight-knit group. Because of the hyperactive hive mind, we can reach out to anybody. Is this a thing? Is this something that we're doing? And you'll get an answer pretty quickly. In the end, we're trying to protect not only ourselves and the company's data, but because we deal with our customers' data, that's kind of the golden goose for us in terms of if our customers lost trust in our ability to secure our systems, we're not going to be in business for very long. To that end, we have a variety of things that we do to try to maintain this. One of the biggest ones is that everybody should have access to 1Password. The 1Password tool itself provides quite a bit of value, not only in terms of it's a password management system and will help fill in your passwords. It also has a lot of password health stuff. I don't know if maybe you've taken the time to actually dig into 1Password, but there's a specific feature that is called Watchtower. So if you look in 1Password on the left side, you'll see Watchtower, and it's going to have a list of here's all of your compromised passwords. Here's all of your passwords that 1Password considers weak. Here's all the number of reused passwords. When I was younger, I have a lot of applications that are the exact same 8-character password, and it was one of those things that when I turned on 1Password and I started storing all that stuff, I've used that same password a lot. And over time, going and rotating those passwords out, I now no longer have that specific vulnerability. 1Password is connected to a service called, what is it? You have been pwned, I have been pwned, have I been pwned? That will tell you if your password shows up in one of the leaked password lists, specifically your username password combo. And so that's where that compromised one comes from. So getting rid of those is definitely on the priority list. At this point, and if it's not, let me know or let Melissa know, and we'll address this. Another tool that we provide is a tool called Jamf, and this is a tool that helps us monitor the various laptops. Everybody should have encrypted hard drives at this point. I think Apple has it on by default. They're no longer, if you've had a memory of, oh my God, encrypted hard drive, it's so slow, it's not really a thing anymore. So it's not a thing to worry about. But if you don't have it on, please do turn it on. And if we don't have Jamf installed, let's get that installed. The big thing of Jamf is if your laptop were to leave your control, with Jamf we can do a remote wipe so that we can make sure that anything that's on your laptop would be removed. To that end, try not to store stuff on your laptop, right? So using Google Drive, uploading to Google Drive, make sure you've got iCloud backups, all of those kinds of things to help protect anything that you've worked, any work that you have. You don't want to lose it if your laptop walks away from you. The other tool that we provide is called EncryptMe. This is a VPN piece of software. And so this will help encrypt communications from the moment it leaves your laptop to its final destination. The big thing there is typically if we're working from coffee shops, where we're going from our laptop to an untrusted access point, there's a period of vulnerability there where someone could get at our internet traffic and start to read it effectively. So if you don't have EncryptMe, if it's not on your computer, let us know. We're happy to get you a login and get that installed, and if you have any questions about how to use it, happy to go through that as well. All right, let's see here. Another big thing that we've talked about a lot is customer data. we want to be careful about when we are accessing customer data. We shouldn't by default like go looking at people's clusters without them, explicitly looking for some kind of query support or trying to understand like why the application isn't working. We've built in some additional safeguards to prevent us from even being able to query the data, but we still do have that access. And at this point, it's not a thing that we're willing to like build as a part of our system that like you can't do this. It's still kind of on like, everybody needs to kind of be on their honor in terms of being wary of that, because we do need it to provide support for customers. We've also implemented changes in our development processes so that when we need to see production data, we pull it down and it gets scrubbed so that we don't have customer data just sitting on our laptops. And that was done a couple of years ago. Just again, kind of in depth. So, okay, so we talked about tools that we have in place and some general high-level stuff. Somebody asked me a question, or I'll start going around. Brian, you seem intrigued.
Oh man, I'm like so excited.
Hit me with the question. Give me some enterprise
What,
security questions.
What exciting new tools have you been looking at in all your spare time?
For security?
Yeah.
None.
Do you have any stories of the security break-ins?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we have a couple. So, one that I like the most because it kind of talks about some of the like an attack avenue that you just don't expect. I was one time pulling down a new Elasticsearch like dashboard UI tool, and was thinking of, is this a thing we could give our customers? What does this look like? And so we pulled it down. We had it pointing at one of our free clusters, and we're poking around, and all of a sudden an index showed up in the cluster that we didn't make. And while looking at the index, it was clear that the owners of the software, which I thought it was an open source piece of software. It was not. It was owned by a commercial company. Apparently, it was doing some kind of telemetry back to the company, and they had like poked around the cluster and had made an index. It was very clear to us that this was not us. Somebody was actually using the credentials that we had put in the system to just explore the tool. So like, as someone who uses a ton of open source software, this really creeped me out. And I can't remember the name of the vendor, but like I'll see them from time to time pop up in the Elasticsearch space, and I'm just like, nope, not even gonna touch you with a 10-foot pole.
Wait, who was this?
I can go find it and send it to you.
Didn't OfferUp have something like that where I want to say when they first started experimenting with Bonsai, they wanted a cluster that had no HTTP on. I don't remember if that was OfferUp or not, but they had it like experimentally for a while, and then one day out of the blue there was an index that showed up that was like protect your shit or something like that was the name of it.
Yeah, it was OfferUp. And this is the reason why we have Vault too. This is not possible with Vault because vaults are not on the internet. You can't access a Vault's cluster from the internet. You have to be in the VPN or the VPC, which is basically a very controlled, segmented thing. So layers of security are always good. When someone cares about security compliance, like we should make sure that they get the best product that we offer for security.
One of the questions that we get a lot, and I don't know if this is in the scope of this or not.
Let's find out.
Our customers always ask us if the data they give us is encrypted.
Okay.
As a security question.
That's
You
a-
remember
yeah.
how a lot of our enterprise customers ask us oftentimes, it's just like, the data that I put into Elasticsearch, is that data encrypted? What is the level of security
Yeah.
there? And that was always fascinating for me to hear that explanation. I think it would be
Absolutely.
good for everybody to have a bit of that.
So there's a lot of layers. At the highest, the first layer that the customer is going to experience is that the data is encrypted in transit. So when they start to even give us data, it's going to go over HTTPS and will be encrypted in transit to us. Once it arrives to us, right, it is then available to Elasticsearch. At this point, it's in plain text. Anybody could read it inside of the JVM. We then write it to disk, at which point it's encrypted again. So it's encrypted at rest, and it's encrypted in flight or in transit. There's a
And what
window
does
there.
titanium do? Talk about the window and then titanium.
There, bro. Let me tell my
I'm trying
story.
to participate here.
Chill.
I saw my opportunity. I
I
went
know.
for it.
I'm trying to serve you up.
I'm ready now.
So there's a window in the JVM where things could be decrypted and things could be kind of captured. So one of the partners that we're starting to work with is called Titanium, and this is currently only for enterprise customers, but it does provide an index level encryption. And just chatting with Dan this morning about exactly where does that encryption start and stop, probably the way we'll configure it is where the query goes all the way back to the client encrypted, and then they have to decrypt it on the client side. So that would be the best piece of security, because then even we could not read the data.
But Elasticsearch itself, for it to function, you cannot encrypt the text that you index.
And that is
Titanium
how
you
Titanium
can.
makes their money.
It's
Right.
called encryption at work, so it's actually encrypting the data and
Okay, that's cool. But until now, that was a problem in our, like, not a problem, but a thing
It was
in
a
our
thing.
system where it was just like, we cannot, for us to search the data, we cannot encrypt the data.
Mhm.
the data.
Right, yeah, it's not encrypted at work, and that's okay. I mean, most customers don't need that. That's
Yeah.
typically why you need that is for compliance purposes. You
Yeah.
have highly sensitive information, and your vendor, you don't want your vendor being able to access it.
Yeah, but one thing too is that when you're doing encryption at work like that, you lose certain functionalities.
Yep.
So it's a trade-off.
It's true.
Well, let's have an NLP session, you know, later on.
What's NLP?
Natural language processing, sorry.
Or neuro-linguistical processing. They're two different things. I went to the
Both
psychological.
NLPs. Let's just do both back to back.
Titanium.
And so Titanium is a
Disagree.
provider that we could use for our enterprise customer that are
Yes.
particularly security
Yep.
conscious.
Yeah.
They have compliance rule requirements, yeah. HIPAA.
Okay, that's really
Extra
cool.
monies.
It's
Okay,
very
cool.
expensive because Titanium charges per node or per core. I can't remember what it is. And
But this would be for like customers that wanna throw money at
banks and
Yeah.
things
Yeah,
like
they're throwing
Yeah.
big money at it.
Yeah.
medical stuff.
that. HIPAA, yeah, something like that.
Something that, and so back to the war stories, there's one that's a little more, another one is we had an API key get stored in, I guess, like a public GitHub repository.
Yeah.
Just on a GitHub repository.
Just on a repo out there.
It was accessible, it was private and somehow still got out.
So plug in GitHub.
I remember that one.
Mm,
If you use some special like Google Food, you can
Got it.
get to it.
Or a contractor checked it out at some point in there. We just still don't know how it got out.
yeah.
It was stored in source code.
But so obviously we don't want to put secrets in source code. So don't do it. And that's why we have, and you know, if you're curious about how do I manage this secret, you can get with Dan, and Dan can show you whatever the latest hotness is there.
Question.
Yeah.
If you were gonna break into one more cloud, what would you do?
If I was going to break into, what's my target?
Money.
My target's money.
I don't know.
I would know.
Money or leverage against
Yeah.
the customer, maybe.
You know, then you're looking at social hijacking, right? You're looking at the OG Matthew Broderick, or you know, the old Hackers movie where you're calling somebody and saying that you are somebody who you're not, and trying to get access to things that you shouldn't have access to.
I get hired. And they get onboarded
Yeah.
into the admin access.
Yeah,
I think-
that would be the
I
best.
mean-
The best way to
Let's
do
see.
it.
That is the most vulnerable.
Joel,
Or
Matt.
steal someone's computer.
Actually, yeah. I
Or
mean,
even
stealing someone's computer. So
Or their
everyone,
phone.
so everyone needs to get on Jam. So you guys need.
And that's a
It's
part of the
something-
onboarding process.
Yeah.
So I assume
I mean, like Maddie, Leo. I don't know. Are you guys on Jam?
I don't know if
They
I
are.
am.
Yeah. Okay.
Was
Okay.
part of-
They are.
was part of my
Okay.
onboarding. Am I on Jam?
Yeah. Oh, I was part of our.
I'm not done.
that'd be a Melissa question. I need to go get your
But it
checklist.
is, but that idea of like stealing someone's computer, I know that with that, if we know that it's been stolen
But
as
it's
soon as possible.
we should all have on disk encryption and also passphrases to access the computer. So if
Yeah.
someone steals my computer and they open it up, unless they know that passphrase, they're not getting in. If they
Yeah.
take the hard drive out to try and
Okay, yeah.
it's still encrypted. So
I assume nobody would come and try and steal your
But-
password.
But if you lose your laptop, you know,
It's the first
let me
thing
know.
you said.
Or, yeah, we'll wipe it. You know, that's important. Right?
Yeah.
We have had laptops left on park benches and walked away from.
Kyle, let's be clear,
That's
it was Kyle.
I'm sure that was you.
That's not.
It's not anybody in this room.
Drew had a laptop stolen out of his car.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, it's totally possible for us to have things stolen. So
Is there a doc for like, what do you do if your company device is stolen?
There is not.
There's not.
I shall create that.
And company
answer to the
device
question.
includes your phone if your phone is connected.
Maintain the.
We don't currently deploy Jamf to phones. We could, but I haven't opted for that personally yet.
What's our vulnerability here? So let's say somebody gets access to our systems,
Mm-hmm.
like,
What's the doomsday scenario?
what do they want? I mean, is there really,
June 14th. Wait,
Yeah.
19th?
Yeah.
2014.
Yeah, the biggest thing that they want is access to our AWS account, like legitimately,
to do what?
to run Bitcoin mining, to run ad bots, to make money
Okay.
on our dime.
That makes
Because
sense.
we pay for the.
Yeah, because we're holding the bill for the servers, right?
that's a not. I mean, if it's targeted, it might be something else. Like targeted attacks are very different. So be nice. That's part of security is don't
Be
make,
nice.
try not to create enemies. If we're targeted, it's a lot harder, right? Like Nick said, someone can try to get a job with us if they really wanted to, which is pretty gnarly to think about, but it's happened. Corporate espionage has happened.
yeah.
It has to be really like hyper focused because each of us has different permission levels. So if someone were to steal my laptop and gain access somehow, they're not going to be able to touch servers
Yeah.
I'm
versus
assuming,
somebody else.
is Melissa the only computer that has access to bank accounts and stuff?
Actually,
There's a few.
There's a few. And so in that situation, if they actually wanted to directly steal our money, but they would have to like,
So yeah,
Go
let's
past
let's
the
talk about that
bank.
real quick.
Protections against that?
There's multiple layers when you get to that level.
yeah.
So not only would you have to get. Say what?
Has anybody walked into a Wells Fargo and pretended to?
And defrauded them into giving a big access.
Pretended to still.
That
be-
happened. That happened here. Someone walked into Wells Fargo and got the person to put them on the account.
Keeping track of the real incidents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1%.
So yeah, if someone got Melissa's computer, let's just say, so they'd have to get past her authentication, right? They'd have to get past the authentication on our 1Password. They'd have to get into Wells Fargo, and then there's a specific portal that you'd have to get into, at which point they would have a certain amount of read access there.
They
As soon as-
change the password every 90 days.
Mhm.
They keep changing
And don't you have a phone
Multi-factor.
confirmation
Yeah.
too?
And MFA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fob or-
Yeah. MFA is a good
Okay,
thing.
so-
You guys aren't letting me tell my
Yay.
stories.
Who's on it? Come on.
So from there, as soon as you want to do anything, make any change, before you can even like submit the change, you immediately have to submit a PIN plus an MFA token. And then when that's done, it's scheduled, at which point somebody else
Has to approve it.
entirely then has to go in who doesn't have the ability to write the change. So like I can approve changes, but I can't create changes.
Oh, okay.
And so like if Melissa creates a change, she can't approve the change. So if anybody's figured out how to do dual access, it's the financial industry, for sure. So at which point so then I have to go in, you'd have to, get through my password, my 1Password, you'd have to have my RSA token to get in to approve it. And then money would finally leave. However, even at this point, if we were to catch it fast enough, because bank money doesn't transfer until the end of the day, we can actually unwind those transfers within a certain time window.
And I assume that you get notified via email
You
and
can.
whatever.
And if it's criminal, the banks will help you too.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So we only have certain authorized folks who can take money from our checking account. And those are usually flagged for additional authorization, whether we request it or not. But the
Yeah, enterprise banking is a whole separate thing.
Is there any way to access our customers' data?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like if we had Wells Fargo as one of our customers, and somebody saw the logo on our website, they would be like, "Ooh, I want to delete my debt
Sure.
or something."
Yeah, I understand the intent. So they would have to identify where the resource is. So they'd have to get the URL of the resource, which is going to be kind of hard to guess. Once they've identified that, they would then have to have the credentials, the username and password to do so. And then our more security conscious people, as Dan mentioned earlier, their stuff isn't even available to the public internet. So even if you had all of the things, you still couldn't get to it. But for whatever reason, Wells Fargo made it public, you'd have to have all of those things to get to it.
But I mean, a banking company is not gonna put their
No, they're not
money
gonna put their
information on a
financial
search,
primary stuff.
on a search thing.
I mean, don't they have to search
Go
their data?
search for Elasticsearch in different press
Their app is a
releases.
prompt.
Yep.
And what you're gonna find is press release after press release after press release of institutions getting breached because there's an insecure Elasticsearch server
Oh,
with sensitive
really?
customer information in it.
Yeah.
So now we're
Sitting
not
on the
fault-
internet.
We're extremely paranoid with Elasticsearch
Okay.
and kind of have been for a long time, but so about the worst case scenario for us is again someone internal goes and uses it. I will say, if you access a customer's cluster that has been logged, just in case anyone is feeling nefarious, we log everything. So if
And we have insurance to cover all the legal fees.
you have insurance to cover that, exactly.
You're fucked.
So it's we've made it so
Joel's like, I just got hired. What's the worst thing I can do?
we're ready for you, Joel.
Be prepared for you.
The point being, there's a
Joel's like,
certain-
wait, can you repeat this?
and
What was the
everybody-
checking account again?
Another principle of security is it's all trade-offs and it's all the maximally protected system is also like the minimally usable system, and so
Yeah.
not
It's the computer that's off that's the best protected.
yeah, exactly. It's like complete protection against risk. Like risk exposure is just a cost benefit analysis. Like every system will have some risk. It will permit some equilibrium amount of fraud, and in some ways we have to draw a line somewhere too, and that's like a decision. And like we have certain vulnerabilities to our team having access to, but then we also trust our team, and it helps us to function.
And
We trust but verify. We write logs that people don't have access to, so that if the feds come serve us with a subpoena, which has happened, we can then go look up the details. So that's kind of, and at the end of the day, like we have the benefit of operating within a fairly stable society with rules and laws, and like even if we completely screw something up, there's systems that exist outside of us that help kind of make things whole again. So that's the sort of, those are the grayest areas of, I mean, we do everything we can with that it's within our reasonable amount of control. And over time, I would like to tighten up the amount of access we have to our systems. If for no other reason, then we can like make stronger promises to our customers and have to like not have to answer so many questions. You know what I mean? Like,
Also,
that's kind
stronger
of the big
promises to
concern.
ourselves, like,
Yeah.
no, you can't hurt anything. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
A little more
I mean,
freedom.
I know that for me, it's been awesome not having access to our actual nodes. Like, I'm okay with that. I have less responsibility. I can't really mess up something like gigantic. What could I mess up? Give a bunch of free plans to a bunch of people.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
That's what I could do.
you could go in and provision a bunch of cells. You could go in and
I did that.
seriously.
I provisioned a thing, and Christine was like, "Nope, that was not a good choice." That I've done.
yeah,
So I
but that
could
that was easy.
bankrupt
That
us.
doesn't harm our customers. That has a cost
No, because
associated.
AWS would stop it. AWS
It's visible.
would, yeah.
It's- Thinking about like when with Google Maps queries,
Mm-hmm.
if you ever talk to anybody customer facing in the org, they'll emphatically say there's no access to the actual data of the API request, like what data was sent in.
Mm-hmm.
Reality is, of course, it's there,
Mhm.
and if you try hard enough, you can find somebody who will access it.
Yeah.
But they do such a good job at keeping it need to know that it's even feasible,
Mhm.
that anybody in the sales org will just say, no, we don't have any access,
Mhm.
which is a nice, I guess, thing to represent to your customers.
Mhm. Some customers are going to care, for us because it's part of the service we provide. Ultimately we need access to the data to tell you why your query is broken.
That's the balance between security and functionality, I think.
So it'd be nice if there was a button in the app, right, where the customer says, okay, now you have access for 24 hours.
I was gonna ask, like, could you, if there is a bump, could they then say, okay, no?
It's a thing we could build.
There are a lot of things.
But I mean,
There's
but
lots of-
the people who would be able to do that anyway, the people who build it can still circumvent it potentially. Like, at some point there is trust,
Mhm.
right? Unless you have something like titanium or things like that. That gets us out of the trust loop, which is kind of cool. So
Then they just have to trust titanium.
yeah.
Mhm. And security is always a trust thing. It's where do you draw the trust boundaries?
Mhm.
All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll depart the stage. Stage right. Stage left.
Saves on.
I honestly, and I'm not being like funny or anything, but Nick, the other day on Slack, you were like, this whole Russia nonsense and the hackers and just be hyper vigilant. And honestly, like, what are the chances of something like that?
I'll tell a
Pretty
story.
great.
Tell
I'll
us
tell a
story.
story. So we remember in December we had that big scramble because of Log4j. It was a big security vulnerability that came out. There is reason to believe that that vulnerability was first used last spring or summer by the Chinese government, like by some state level actor
Sure.
exploiting like a large vendor somewhere. I don't remember exactly. I don't remember if this is part of SolarWinds or something, but there was some state level cyber incursions that exploited a vulnerability in a common piece of software. And then once that came to light, the whole industry realized, oh no. So we weren't targeted in that, but we were affected by a vulnerability or weakness that was present very commonly. So
Yeah.
when a light is shown on like vulnerabilities, like, and state level actors maintain catalogs of these things and will use them for certain purposes. So there's every reason to believe that right now there are zero-day exploits being used in the wild, and the ripple effects there are that individual organizations are going to try to understand what happened, try and fix that. That's going to shine a light on some sort of common vulnerability, and so I fully expect in weeks or months to be on the receiving end of some sort of notice that, hey, this is out there, and then Rob's going to have a really bad week.
And also just ignoring geopolitical stuff and the tension right now. This is always something we should expect to happen at some
Yeah,
point. I mean,
absolutely.
the software that we run is extremely complicated, and there's, the Log4j is like, I cannot believe that feature was there, and I've used Log4j, well, I don't use it anymore, but you kind of like, I had no idea that was a thing,
Well,
There's
it'll
too
be
many
our-
lines of codes.
It's
Yeah.
real.
Prior to that, there was
Yeah.
the
I mean, I know it's real. It's just like,
And it's
Yeah.
real
Is it
and
gonna knock on our
likely.
door,
It's
or
real
is it
and
like-
likely, I guess I should say, yeah.
I mean, prior to Log4j, there was the Groovy thing too in Elasticsearch,
Right.
where there was a vulnerability to break out of the sandbox and like access actual like operating systems.
So periodically we actually have to
Yeah.
deal with
Yeah.
I mean, every other user.
it might not be the Chinese government that comes and directly hacks on the cloud.
Oh, if that were to happen, we'd be so hosed.
Yeah.
Or the Russian or Ukrainian
That is not our
government.
threat profile witstanding a
So
nation
it's not
state.
direct.
Don't piss China off. That's
Yeah.
it. Be nice, be nice.
Situations like that.
No tweets about Taiwan.
No tweets about Taiwan.
There's a really fantastic collection of 0 days that dropped for Windows in like 2008. When I can't remember how it got made known, but effectively the United States government had over 30 0-day vulnerabilities against Windows that they had been using for decades to surveil other
People.
countries.
Shadow brokers or whatever it's called.
There was just
So-
like a gajillion. It was just like
As
people
Dan
were just
said,
mind
just
blown
be nice.
at the number.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if the NSA wanted to take everything off from us, they could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
So just be nice.
They probably have insiders too, like,
sure.
So it's very real.
Like Joel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's my cousin.
But I mean, even the chips, like Intel and AMD and all these chips, they have management engines that, you know, are
Well,
suspected.
Heartbleed, right?
They have suspected backdoors.
Yeah,
You know.
that was
On your
another
chip.
one of the
Hardware.
where there was like a patch for it that slowed down a lot of those CPUs. So I'm trying to remember what it was that got shut down, but it was some instructions.
It was the predictive
Yeah,
branching.
Yeah.
What was that called?
Heartbleed?
Something
No, but like,
stuff like that.
Shadow. I forget what it was called.
There were like two of them, right?
Yeah, there's two.
Speculative execution.
Yeah.
Speculative execution.
Spectre, that's it. Yep.
Do you guys ever listen to Darknet Diaries?
Absolutely. So
It's a
You can-
podcast where they
so
go,
nerdy and I love this.
they get it. It's a security podcast. The guy interviews really interesting tech security breaches, and it's fascinating.
And there's people that are just doing this all day because there's what are the security policies called where they'll give you money? What's that called?
Oh,
Bounties.
you're thinking of the
Bounties, yeah.
bounties?
People just do this. They just look for these vulnerabilities.
You're gonna just.
Hopefully they're white hat.
That's what being a pen tester would be fun.
Yeah, it would be kind of fun, I guess.
Interesting to know.
Just running scripts.
Yeah, a lot of it's just scripts.
Well, I would. Yeah.
And then so, on top of everything that we do, just to kind of wrap up the security thing, obviously we have some security that happens from SOC2. It's going to be a lot more like process-based security in terms of, was this change put into place because of an actual need, or has somebody gone rogue and gotten code in? It also asks that we do a pen test on our systems, and so we do a monthly pen test against known exploits. We additionally do a once a year, Dan's leading this effort up this year, we do a once a year audit of our systems. So this is going to be a white box, meaning that they'll actually look at our source code and look for vulnerabilities. We did this last year. This is the Praetorian document that maybe you've seen, and so we're re-upping it this year. So it's something we'll do every year.
They're not looking at source code.
What?
They're not looking at source code.
They're gonna do black box this time?
They're doing black box, but they'll actually try to do targeted attacks against. We'll kind of tell them what the system is, what services it runs, and then they'll target it.
When is that?
3 to 5 weeks. So if there's, I think they had a few little findings. We should prioritize those just so we get an A.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I haven't.
I am actively working on a few of the little
Oh, great.
security changes for
Nice.
the
Okay, cool.
compliance,
Great.
our sign up stuff.
Okay, cool, perfect.
That one of those things I'm working on in
Great.
the product, so.
And then when they come through, they won't flag that. That'll be good.
All right.
Cool. Thanks, Drew.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Drew.
Who's in the hot seat?